call my friend there, that's our code of arms. It's the end, so let's just play the odds. You're my friend there, that's our code of arms. Sing along till the end, don't you know, babe? Where your friends at, take it in the arm. Everyone till the end, something is. You call me friend now, that's a call to arms. Stick around till the end, something is. Call your friend so, that's a call to arms. Stick around till the world stops clicking. Eyes from the street. Call my I read the rituals on the wall, behind the shelf of the car. The ends counted 409, and back into the wall. Success is the Magnification. I left home at 17. Couldn't tell you, was living the dream. What could I do? For a while I played with you. How could I prove the hidden you without the blues to you? My heart was cool and left residue. Catch you if you fall, catch you if you low. Your look goes high enough, like friends you used to know. Catch you if you fall, catch you when
What's up, everybody? Man, it is so damn hot. I thought I was being clever. I had the AC on for a bit. And I was like, all right, I think it's cool enough. Now I can set up and stream. And in like 5 minutes, it's just like literally dripping. But we got this really killer moons over Jupiter. I guess Io is over Jupiter, and then Ganymede up top is kind of emerging from behind Jupiter. The shot is not super clear, but I feel like it's so much humidity. I feel like the scope is focused, so let's see if it gets a little sharper. Callisto and Europa up to the top. Oh yeah, what's going on, Anthony? What's up? Anthony, sorry, what's up? Dagger Spells, how's it going? What's up, Mary Quite? Good to see you. Hope you're feeling a little better. You're welcome for the catchy tune. It's cooking. Alright, so just chill a little bit and see if it gets clear. Have myself a little smoke with y'all. What up there, Scott Wagner? Appreciate it. Shout outs to Chicago. What's up, Flat Earth Mother? Having clear skies. Yeah, today it looked a little cloudy, but it's not too bad right now. Definitely not as nice as last night, but we'll see. I want to be positive. This configuration is incredible. Again, Ganymede coming out the top, and then Io shadow. What up there, Light Moon? Evening to you.
Of a lifetime, it's such a good
back to some new stuff. Repeat parties. Demo version 1. Final version 1. Final underscore new. Underscore X. Yeah, so this really is a cool configuration. Ion Ganymede hanging out like little people standing, running on Jupiter, chasing each other. Very cool. I wish it were a little clearer, but very enjoyable. Sensei. That's Ganymede up top, emerging from, I want to say, behind Jupiter, and then you got Io. The shadow of Io is the little dark spot underneath that on the upper band. Very cool configuration, and possibly we'll see if the storm comes around. The view is a little bit on the turbulent side, a lot of humidity as well. Then when I peeked this moon config, I was just like, I gotta get online. Hope everybody's doing great tonight, as always. Thanks for joining. Another space trip, another journey, another opportunity to put out good vibes and precision intention for a free and open space program. Any takers? Any takers? Open up space to the public, let people launch rockets. Nobody owns space, or no one should own space. Space Force gonna get ya. Yeah, that Space Force better be pretty big, because there's a lot of room out there. I don't know, it's possible that it's already built up already, but who knows. For now, free space. Or free-for-all space. It's probably a free-for-all.
Find its way into the hot dry stone. Feel the stein, bring the wine, tell it the time until the twilight's gone. You're well, fields and just with like fools, just with all the cool chicks. Their minds, nothing towards their phone lips. Talking about their real wild, sin rich well, sin wild, well. Gonna get the walls, it's a big old trap. Gonna get the wall, it's a photon. Get it. Data islands, the night is on. Find its way until the hot dog's done. It's fine, finger wine until the time, until the twilight's gone. You're well, said you're well, said fight fool. It's just with love, the cool chicks. Do not mind, plug it in the Wednesday phone. television. Coherent integration. Syncopated television. Suffering under the box. Separation information. Slithering down the tracks. Syncopated television. Coherent integration.
Man, this lunar configuration is just giving me all these cool ideas. It's interesting. I feel like actually Io is moving towards Jupiter, like moving to the left rather than moving to the right. So the shadow is being cast from the bottom, which makes sense. This is right side up on the scope. And then you got Ganymede clearing Jupiter at the top. I feel like it's getting clearer ever so slightly. But you can see that Io turned into a brighter spot. up there, Tammy? What up there, Happy Honey Big Bear? What's going on? Welcome to you both. This shot is just getting cooler. So I was wrong. I guess Io is actually moving off as opposed to going on. So now Io and Ganymede above that, dancing, hopping off. It's so cool. Imagine like that kind of micro Earth, microcosm Earth, or whatever, that spherical Earth. And just like they're little beings running after each other. So cute. All right. I was talking about a few things about plasma, and I guess maybe people don't want to hear too much about plasma, but since y'all are here, I'm just going to say it because that's what I'm doing. But it's very interesting because I was re-listening to the whole talk on Birkeland currents and electric Jupiter, and how Jupiter's poles and Saturn's poles are basically counter-rotating currents, which are twisted filaments, and like how twisting and vortexes are very ubiquitous throughout the universe, and everything basically spirals, galaxy spiral, water spirals, tornadoes. It's really inherent in nature, that form. And so the twisting currents are basically at the poles of Jupiter and Saturn and probably Earth. And there are all these pop-sci articles about how Jupiter is, they're confused by Jupiter's power. Like, how is Jupiter charged, and how does it lose all this charge, like up to it's like 400,000 kilovolts. And so this charge comes from the fact that Jupiter is in electric space, it seems. And it's part of science that just doesn't get talked about very often. But the aurora on Jupiter probably is caused from the outside, from the medium that it's in, which is the dielectric field. And then there's this whole other idea about how the universe is essentially all plasma, and then plasma interacts with electric fields to form these kind of filaments and densities and magnetic fields and interconnectedness. These long strands throughout the universe, like nebula and things like M42, for example. If you've seen that shot of the cluster of stars, the trapezium, you see these giant clouds. They call them, nebula. But nebula is really interesting because I always talk about how there are all these nebulous concepts which you really can't comprehend, right? But if you think about space as plasma, and then in certain configurations you have electric fields that actually stretch and pull plasma in different ways, and that's how you create these spirals and you create these clouds. So that's what I was studying today. That's a little more in line with what I'm talking about. Tammy says, those moons are effing awesome. They really are. I'm just like trying to... It's so interesting to have such a cool shot of Jupiter and then put some of it off screen for the moons, but just a little bit longer. I don't know if it's getting that much clearer, but it's that humidity tonight just crushing it. Oh, right, so what I was saying is, so if plasma interacts with electric fields and creates nebular clouds and galaxies and quasars and possibly stars, which feel like stars could be analogous to lymph nodes, for example, like pearls on a string, and they're grown. And so stars essentially have like an outer core and then an inner center, but most of it's really hollow. And that idea of like hollow Jupiter, hollow planets, hollow Earth, or hollow Moon, for example, maybe things like the Moon, Earth, Jupiter are actually grown from a node, from a massive nodal discharge. And that's actually because they're powered from the outside by by solar filaments that actually it's essentially mixing and matching all these different electric fields in a plasma ether, right? That's just one idea that I was actually trying to comprehend today. It's not the be-all, end-all theory, it's just one idea. but the idea that dark matter, or at least the space between us and Jupiter currently, is filled with plasma. And so at different densities between us and Jupiter, there are different electric fields, different modalities, so plasma is contorted and twisted. And so if plasma is the building blocks of these things, possibly plasma is the building blocks of planets like Earth, stars like the Sun, Jupiter, comets like Venus, etc., and they're actually grown. They don't actually chip away from anything or just appear from nowhere, because really planetary formation by accretion disk is something that really hasn't been proven. All right, I'll take a look at that, Mary. Thank you. So that's essentially the title of this video. It's just to look into the idea of mixing essentially the ingredients of the universe, plasma, and all these elemental, crystalline, lattice structure molecules. And then you have electric fields, and these interaction of electric fields and magnetic fields actually morph and twist objects into focused, intentional objects like Jupiter, Earth, stars, etc. And then everything else is kind of just counter space, which holds it all together in stasis. And of course, because it's charged, it induces magnetic fields, and that's how you have movement. And since the whole thing is electrically charged from the sun, or probably from beyond, all planets and Earth and the sun, asteroids and comets are all powered from the outside. And then they're at the nexus of those objects is the center of the magnetic field, the magnetic toroid. So I feel like that's where that missing, where scientists are always baffled. If you really applied electricity to it, it would actually make more sense. Yeah, especially like I was listening to this theory about how quantizing space, right, as opposed to linear space. So if densities are actually quantized where they jump, 4, 8, 12, 24, etc., versus like go from 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, just go in a linear fashion. So if let's say redshift behaves that way, quantized redshift, if you apply that to what we perceive as gravity or what we perceive as density, perhaps densities are quantized as they leave Earth, and then densities are quantized towards Earth, and so that's where I guess the Lagrange point, like the null zone, or maybe different points above Earth where you have two competing magnetic fields that create this antigravitic orbital plane or orbital like sandwiched area. That's how it sort of makes sense if you think about like how gravity could be an interpretation of this much larger force of electricity and electrodynamics. It flows. Man, there's so many puns when you talk about electricity, like current and flow and charge, and I don't know, but maybe it's just because it's so fundamental. Yo, what's up, Genghis Khan? How's it going? So the idea that Jupiter was grown, it feels like that could be this amazing visual, that we haven't really imagined. We haven't seen sci-fi, for example, or pop sci talk about planets and stars growing. They always talk about, actually I don't know what they really talk about. It's always like you have these accretion disks and you have a bunch of orbiting rubble, and somehow these rocks of different sizes kind of smash into one another and fuse. This is planetary accretion creation, and so after a while, these orbiting rocks fuse and create planets or asteroids or meteorites. The star formation, for example, even though there are some articles that indicate, that they've solved how stars are formed, or they say birthplace of stars, or rather, Pop Sci says the birthplace of stars. Stars growing along filamentary Birkeland currents that go throughout space really is such a strong visual. I love getting interrupted by my own tunes. Hell yeah, let's just keep this going. So very long lightning bolts that we can't see because they're probably of such one size, and two, they're probably in a certain frequency range or optical range that we can't see without the use of X-rays or gamma telescopes. So this optical telescopes, you're going to see the bands and the colors of Jupiter, and we barely even see the blue glow of the poles. But so couple the idea of a plasma-filled ether with charge in different areas, like a turbulent noise-based system of charge interacting in different modalities. And along these filamentary currents, planets arise, stars arise, galaxies and quasars, things that resemble black holes, but actually really make more sense in the context of counter space and space. Space being what we can actually see, rather. And then what is considered dark matter, dark energy, is actually dielectric medium, which is, I guess, all sorts of different elements. It's radiation, it's plasma. Maybe plasma is everything. Maybe electricity is plasma. Maybe, and I don't exclude the fact that we could be imagining all of this. But if we're not, it's fascinating to imagine that Jupiter was a grown planet that just appeared in some sort of network neural system in somebody's brain or a giant's body, or maybe it's still in our minds, in fact. Maybe space is outside in, or inside out, rather. Just a few thoughts. I feel like it's getting a touch clearer. Ion Ganymede, the dance of the moons, now cleared a good portion of Jupiter. They're a little bit fainter, but Jupiter has a lot more detail. You got those storms, and I wonder if the Great Red Storm will show up before I gotta call it. Yeah, so Genghis Khan says, don't black holes shoot out a ton of electricity when they devour enough material? So that whole idea of devouring, really seems like magnetism, right? What's magnetism at that size with that much electric current going through it can really appear to suck in matter, right? But the idea that, the properties of a black hole, as far as I'm not an expert by any means, but I guess I've watched a lot of lectures a bunch of different times, and especially the Stephen Crothers stuff, and he really talks about how if you really look at what the properties of black holes are, they really contradict physical findings. For example, even this photo of a black hole is not really possible with the concept of the speed of light, the event horizon, the fact that black holes originally shouldn't have shot out any matter. Everything was condensed to a finite point. But now somehow we have these galactic jets. And so things like galactic jets, if you do laboratory experiments with plasma, you do have these Z-pinches, you have electric discharge and flares that can shoot out etheric matter, or whatever, ether or plasma, as I was just talking about, right? So it's sucking in ether and plasma and then just having massive electric discharge and then shooting that same stuff out. And it's all happening within the context of what we can actually visually see. So there is no idea, this idea of speed of light or not speed of light, there is no measurement of the speed of light because, Because think about it, it's almost like a self-defeating concept. That the fact that you can place a limit on something that that you can't find a limit, that you can't move past. So I know it sounds that I sound a little naive maybe when I say that, but in fact, if you really consider it, the fact that mankind has placed stipulations on numbers and then applied those numbers to reality, and then when physical findings actually negate those numbers, they always jump back to the theory instead of changing the numbers to apply to the realistic findings. Hope that made sense. Yeah, look at it, it's gotten nice and sharp. I'm gonna take a little break and grab a water because, man, it is so humid, and I gotta maybe sort out like getting a smaller screen for this because, you know, especially through the summer. But yeah, I'll take a little break, put on some cheese. I wonder what I have to drink. What am I gonna play? Yeah, thanks, Happy Honey Big Bear. What's up, Z Proxy? Staying cool. Check out this lunar Jovian lunar configuration. We got Ganymede on the left and Io on the right. Looking pretty rad. Europa and Callisto upright. Mary. Have a great night. Sleep well. Yawn away. Yeah, what's up, Hip? Still cold in Syracuse. Shout out Syracuse. Welcome. Been a while. Thanks for showing up. Got a really pretty decent shot of Jupes. Hopefully the storm will come soon. We got that nice filament on the upper band reaching into the center. And I pushed up that contrast a little bit. Right now I got the Sony with a 3x Televue Barlow on the 11-inch. And yeah, I feel like I've done like maybe a solid week of Jupiter or more maybe. Very cool. Get to do this. Yo, thanks, Kingus. Come on, Great Red Storm, let's do it. Yeah, I'm kind of feeling this a bit more. Yeah, so just a little bit more about vortexes and swirls. Vortexes and swirls are everywhere. They seem to be inherently either magnetic or electric in nature. And it seems like storms on Earth and the way clouds form, those types of fractals are the same types of fractals we're looking at here on Jupiter, all caused by probably a mix of liquid hydrogen. Like, I say that, but I'm not exactly sure it's that. But it could be some form of plasma. But I do know that I see swirls that look like the weather patterns we see here on Earth on a giant scale. Unless Jupiter is tiny, but either way, it still is an object that looks like it's been formed by vortexial patterns. And it also maintains these layers, so you have counter-rotating rings. The idea of counter-rotating rings inducing current or magnetic fields makes a lot of sense. So, real observational evidence of Jupiter having swirly storms, you know, to some degree, it's clear enough, I think. Especially if people take this footage and stack it, you can get very, very clear swirls, especially this long, dark filament from the upper band. Excuse me. Yeah, look at that, it's getting nice and sharp. And you can kind of see the sandwich layers of interlocking, like vortex rings, pulling all this, whatever surface material over Jupiter and then you have to wonder, is Jupiter just an outer shell with an inner, hollow? I guess it's probably still filled with plasma. It's almost like there is no empty space necessarily. So I say hollow, but it doesn't mean it's empty. Yo, what up, Flat Earth dude? How's it going? And the weather just cooled off too. It's so interesting. As long as I don't move. Stay cool. So I think my tracking is it is a little bit better tonight. I do have to keep it in center, but it's definitely not drifting as wildly. I did a 2-star align on Sabic and Antares. Usually you want a wider swath, but I can't really see much more through this window. It's alright, it'll work. Look at that, it's crazy. I'm in awe as well. Every time I see Jupiter with y'all, it's like, it always feels like it's pretty new. Especially I love this lower band looking like, even though it almost like gets cut off in a way. 2/3 of the way to the left. Yeah, I thought I ruined it and then I fixed it. I think that's the sharpest focus. I had to just dial it in a tiny bit from the right. Like I realized like if I move into focus from the left or the right, it's a little bit different. So I had to throw it out to the left a bit more and then just come in on it. Yo, what's going on, Duplicate? How's it going? Feline vibes going on, Jupiter. Look at this crazy image. And you gotta check back earlier if you missed the interesting Ganymede and Io dance that happened. They're just hanging out right here. But it was very interesting earlier. What's up, Jen Perry? How's it going? Got Ganymede on the left, Io on the right. Little Jovian moon, Axion. It's just like bouncing to the music. Constantine, how's it going? What's up, Central California? Flat Earth Mother says, what are my thoughts on the lack of parallax of stars as observed from Earth? So, I'll be honest, I've tried to do those polar stars like, Castor and Pollux and the North Star, and it's really difficult to actually measure stellar parallax as an amateur astronomer or backyard astronomer. So I don't know, I've always wondered about that, but I don't know, I always question distances in space just simply based on the redshift, intrinsic redshift, and so redshift being a measure of youth versus a measure of distance, and the fact that redshift could be quantized, and so distances are not measured linearly, they're measured in jumps, like massive jumps. So maybe these distances are not as far as they really are in terms of how we interpret distances. But yeah, I'm not sure about stellar parallax. I know it's a very hardcore, fundamental proof of a lot of different things, but it really relies on, I guess, the way we interpret light approaching Earth. But for me, light is always the idea of focused points of light are kind of in and of themselves a bit of a trickery because of the curvature of the sky. So the sky kind of distorts every pinpoint of light. So even now, Jupiter is actually at a slightly different location because of the curve of the actual sky that we're looking at it through. So nothing is really in its own place. So observing proper stellar parallax with anything, I don't even know how you would really do it. I've seen the experiments, but I just always question that. Damn, I am slurring hardcore. It means that it's just cooking my brain right now. This humidity. I need to shut everything down, kind of put on the AC and cool down. This is good. It's been a nice stream, and I was kind of hoping the Great Storm would show up, but I'm losing it due to the window, of course. And it'll be nice to take a break. So thanks all for hanging out with me tonight. It's a nice cozy campfire trip through space. People probably freaked out because the title Electric Fields and Plasma sounds really scary. But it's not. It's really interesting to feel that we're all connected and that we understand what dark matter is. And then we can start working from there. So have a great night, rest of your night, and probably catch you all tomorrow if the clouds are clear. We'll take another look at Jupiter and the dance of the Jovian moons. All right. See y'all soon. Peace.